Good morning and welcome to Algebra 1 for Friday, May 29th. We made it through another week. All right, so the worksheet for last night asked you to first figure out how many solutions there would be using the discriminant. So number 1, y equals 1/2 x plus 3x minus 2. Let's use the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. Again, a is 1/2. B is 3, C is -2. So B squared minus 4AC is 3 squared minus 4 times 1/2 times -2. That's 9. Now, negative times a negative is a positive number, so plus what? Well, 4 times 1/2 is 2, and 2 is 4. So that gives us an answer of 13. So what's the answer to the question? 2 solutions. 13 is a positive number, so our little guideline said if the discriminant is positive, there will be 2 solutions. So that's what you had to do for this problem. Number 2, very similar, gave you y equals 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. A is 5, B is -2, be careful with that, C is +1. B squared minus 4ac, again, if the b is a negative number, put it in parentheses. So it's -2 squared minus 4 times 5 times 1. -2 squared is 4, +4. Minus 4 times 5 times 1 is 20, and that's -16 again. Negative discriminant tells you that there will be no solutions. Okay, so what do I want in these kinds of questions? I want to see you evaluate the discriminant. Tell me the number. Then I want to see you tell me what the number means. How many solutions will there be? If it's a positive number, there's 2 solutions. If it's the number 0, there's 1 solution. And if it's a negative number, there's no solutions. The other 2 prompts you had to answer for last night were solving using the quadratic formula, so that we can still practice using that. So let's look at those 2. So number 3 on the worksheet, y equals -1/2 x squared plus 5x plus 4. So again, A this time is -1/2, B is 5, and C is 4. So we're going to go back to the quadratic formula and use it. X equals -5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times -1/2 times 4 all over 2 times -1/2. Understand, I don't use parentheses around the b value when it's positive because you don't have to. There's no benefit to. But when it's negative, you must. So it's -5 plus or minus the square root of 25. Negative times negative is positive, so plus 4 times 1/2 is 2, and 2 times 4 is 8. All over -1. That's what 2 times -1/2 is. So we have -5 plus or minus the square root of 33 over -1. Now 33 is not a perfect square. You can solve it. You will have to solve it. Just use a calculator to find the square root of 33. And then round to an appropriate number of decimal places. Usually 2 places is sufficient. So x equals -5 plus or minus 5.74 over -1. Yes, there can be decimal and fractional answers. It's not an issue. Just use the calculator to find the square root and round to 2 places. Okay, so I have to solve these 2 problems now. X is -5 plus 5.74 over -1. That's 0.74 over -1, which is just -0.74. That's one of the answers. Also, x equals -5 minus. So -5 minus 5.74 over -1. That's negative 10.74 over negative 1, which is 10.74. So we have two solutions, negative 0.74 and 10.74. There are decimals. It's going to be okay. Imagine trying to graph that and tell me with that kind of exactness that the two places where the x-axis is crossed is negative 0.74 and 10.74. I don't think that that could be done. So the quadratic formula, again, is very necessary for problems like these when it's not evident where the curve is crossing the x-axis. And the last question you had to solve, number 4, y equals x squared plus 10x plus 25. So identify the ABC. A is the number 1, B is the number 10, C is 25, and x equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 25, all over 2 times 1. That's negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 100, which is 10 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 25, which is also 100, over 2. I hope by now we can understand what's going to happen. The square root of 0 over 2. The discriminant is the number 0, which we already said means there will only be one solution because the square root of 0 is 0, and when you add or subtract 0, it doesn't change the value. So there will just be one solution, but if you want to show the work, x equals negative 10 plus or minus nothing over 2. So x equals negative 10 plus nothing over 2. Well, that's negative 5. And x equals negative 10 minus nothing over 2, which is also negative 5. There's only one answer. X equals negative 5, which means at negative 5 on the x-axis, the parabola is going to come down, touch it, but bounce off of it and move up again. So there's only one solution, one place where the parabola will touch the x-axis. It doesn't go all the way through. It hits it and bounces off like a ball hitting the ground. Okay, so that covers looking at quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, solving for what the x-intercepts would be mathematically, how many solutions there can be, 0, 1, or 2, and how the discriminant helps us understand how many solutions that there will be. There's no homework for the weekend. Enjoy it, and we'll come back on Monday to do a little bit more work and hopefully move through this unit fairly quickly without too much trouble. If you have any questions, always let me know. Send me an email. Tell me if you're struggling. If you haven't been doing the homework, please start. Please watch the videos if you haven't been. Of course, I'm talking to no one if that's the case. But do what you have to do. Get caught up and ask me if you need help. Have a wonderful weekend.